Welcome in, everybody. Another edition of Mean Streets powered by FTN right here on Game Plus Network. Happy Tuesday. Chris Meaney here hanging out with you for the next hours. So a lot of hockey talk here today. We're just a couple weeks away from the puck dropping on the NHL season. So we will address a little bit of last night's football game. If you want to call it that, the Dallas Cowboys had their way with the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But Eric Young is going to stop by. That's right, the Eric Young. It's going to be a pleasure to talk a little hockey with him. Of course, he is the new addition of FTN. Him and I will have a lot of hockey content for you throughout this season. We're going to have a show where we're giving picks every single week and some props, all that good stuff. So Eric and I are going to break down the Central Division. Of course, he is from Nashville, and he has a soft spot for the Predators, but there's also a couple other teams that I think are more appealing, certainly inside that division. The Colorado Avalanche are Stanley Cup favorites yet again. Can they get past that next step? Can they get into the third round, Colorado? Let's see if they can do it this season, but there's a lot that the division has to offer. So we'll talk to Eric about a lot of the just sleepers, busts, like we did last week on a Tuesday with Pete Jensen of NHL.com. If you missed that, it's up on our YouTube page, FTN. You can subscribe to Mean Streets, the audio version, Apple, Spotify, wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. And Pete Jensen and I went through the Atlantic Division. We just really it was kind of quick hits through the entire division. I don't think we really got to Detroit or Ottawa. No disrespect to those squads. Those two teams do have a lot to offer from a fantasy standpoint. Eric and I will try to get through all the central divisions, all the central teams here today. And we'll just go through where their, ADP is on certain sites, if we like them, sleepers, busts, some breakouts, and, try to find an edge in the betting market as well. So Eric Young is hanging by. Let's talk about last night here quickly. It kind of went how I thought it would go. From a prop standpoint, not so much. We didn't get Jalen Hurts' rushing yards. He finishes with 35. We did get the over 7.5 rushing attempts. We just got there. He had 8. We didn't get Dak Prescott in passing yards, although he looked really good, 21 for 26 with 3 touchdowns. He just had control of the offense. Very accurate, much like last week against the Chargers. I thought he was really, really accurate. And we also didn't get CeeDee Lamb. It was just a heavy dose of Zeke and Pollard, which was kind of surprising that they were able to run all over the Philadelphia Eagles. And, this Eagles team has been good in the past in stopping the run, and certainly they were in the first 2 weeks of the season. But my goodness, they were not at all yesterday. Dallas was able to get whatever they wanted against Philadelphia. Let's just start here from the Philly side of things. So it was a 41-21 game, and the Eagles were out of it right away. I mean, Dallas marched down the field, a long drive, running the football all over Philadelphia, scored some points, and then Jalen Hurts has the turnover where he underthrew Jalen Reagor. He had him deep in the end zone. That's a couple times I've seen Jalen Reagor underthrow some of his guys. In the week 2 against San Fran, he underthrew Jalen Reagor. The same play where actually there was 2 plays. One, he underthrew him, and another one where it was a touchdown, but Reagor stepped out. And then there was a couple times he underthrew Devontae Smith in week 2. And I saw a lot of that last night as well with Jalen Reagor. And the biggest takeaway for me is Miles Sanders. Like, what's this guy doing getting 2 carries? I know the game was out of hand early. Like I said, Dallas marches down the field. They get the touchdown. Philadelphia has the turnover, Jalen Reagor, and then they find a way to, get after Dak in the end zone. Fletcher Cox comes away with that touchdown, and then it's a tie game. But then Dallas does the same thing. It marches all the way down the field, using both running backs, Tony Pollard, a lot on that second drive. And then they weren't able to get in. It looked like Dak it looked like Dak got in, but there was no evidence to overturn the ruling on the field, which wasn't a touchdown. But then Hurts struggles again, and Dallas kind of gets up by 2 scores, and it seemed like at that moment the game was really over. And then Philadelphia started in the second half with the ball, and then it was a pick 6. But Miles Sanders getting 2 carries, like there's no real excuse for it. I even still down a couple scores, you want to try to have some balanced attack here. I don't understand the usage when it comes to Miles Sanders. As a rookie in 2019, he was one of 4 backs to have 4.6 yards per attempt on the ground, 50 catches, 500 receiving yards, and 800 rushing yards. 4 backs. Elite company. Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, CMC. Great rookie season. And then in year 2, a major step back. He has 2 games with 20 carries in 31 games, just over 2 years. He has 7 games with over 15 carries. I don't get the usage. I thought it was a Doug Peterson thing, but clearly it's not. I mean, we're here through 3 weeks, and this guy is not getting the ball. And, he was okay in those 2 carries. He had a long run, since he's entered the league, only Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb have more 50-yard touchdown runs than Miles Sanders. I don't understand it. I really don't get it at all. I'd like to say that he's a buy low candidate, but I can't trust this Eagles coaching staff. I mean, you look at Nick Sirianni, he's 40 years old. Shane Steichen is 36, offensive coordinator, and Jonathan Gagnon, defensive coordinator, is 38. These guys are all in first-time roles. They've never been OCs, defensive coordinators, they've never been coaches, and they're the only trio in terms of a defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, and coaching staff that's 40 years or younger. And you're starting to see that. I saw it a lot in week 2 with the Niners, some of the play calling. And I mean, Jalen Hurts shouldn't be dropping back 40 plus times. And there's a disconnect there. He's extending RPOs and there's ineligible guys down the field. It's just like high school stuff. The penalties are absurd. They're the most penalized team so far through a couple weeks here into the season. It's not good in Philadelphia. And my expectations weren't high with this team. You'd like what you saw in week 1 and it's Atlanta Falcons, right? And then in week 2, maybe the Niners are a little bit overrated. I think that's possible. But they hung around against the Niners. And now they're missing 3 guys off that offensive line. They got injuries in the back end on the defensive line as well. Brendan Graham was certainly missed yesterday. So the Eagles are in a lot of trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. I don't know if I'm not suggesting for people to go out there and buy Miles Sanders. I'm sure they're going to want to have a more balanced attack next week, but they got the Chiefs. They got the Kansas City Chiefs, who have lost a couple games in a row now and are most likely just furious, right? They're going to stop messing around here. Andy Reid returns to Philadelphia. He's going to light up this Eagles team. So how many carries is Miles Sanders going to get? Is it going to be much of the same behind what looked like a good offensive line in week 1, now looks like the offensive line of last season with a lot of holes due to injuries? Devontae Smith is the one guy that I would grab. I mean, 6 targets yesterday, 3 catches, wasn't really a big part of the offense. Trayvon Diggs is an elite shutdown corner. We talked about him yesterday as being an elite shutdown corner. He's got a pick in each of his first 3 games. He's very solid. And one thing as we transition here over to the Cowboys, I mean, that's it. I don't want to put the game on Hurts. A couple bad throws. He didn't play great. He's underthrowing guys. I don't think they ever make a quarterback change. I think that they stick with him and they see what they have. But if he struggles this season, they're most likely going to have a top pick. They could have the Colts. That could be a top 10 pick if Indy continues to trend that way. So they probably address the quarterback situation. It may be unfair to evaluate Hurts behind this offensive line, but we'll see what he can do moving forward. You're starting Hurts every week. The numbers at the end of the day are fine in the box score. At the fantasy standpoint, he can run. He's going to have good fantasy outings. But everybody else inside this offense, I'm not really sold on besides Devontae Smith. I still think that he'll get like 25% target share, which is pretty solid. He'll have his up and downs. But for the Dallas, on the Dallas side of things, when I talked to Tino after week 1, we both said, it kind of looks like the same old Cowboys. Like the defense still looks like it has a lot of holes, and maybe we just give credit to Tampa Bay and what they were able to do in week 1 against the Cowboys. Last week they held their own against the Chargers team, who I think we can all agree, pretty good on offense, right? They held their own last week at Arrowhead. They won the game. They scored some points. Justin Herbert looks good. So they held their own there. And as much as we're kind of bashing Philly and the play calling and the play calling was ludicrous last night. No wonder guys were jumping routes. Like they're just throwing the ball like 5 yards down the field. I mean, Dallas was picking up on that pretty easily. But let's give credit to the Cowboys. I mean, just talk about Trayvon Diggs, a nice solid corner that they have. Micah Parsons is all over the field generating pressure. Maybe the Cowboys defense isn't as bad as, what we thought. Maybe it's okay, but it's clearly their division to win. As I mentioned, Dak 3 touchdowns. He was just in control of the offense, calling audibles at the line of the scrimmage, taking advantage of the Eagles secondary. When it looked like they were going to stop the run, they just pushed the ball down the field. And a great game from Dak and a great game from Zeke, 17 for 95, has 2 touchdowns. Pollard was sprinkled in there as well, 11 for 60. It was a much more balanced attack. What we talked about on the show after week 1, the Cowboys are 4-11 when Dak throws the ball more than 40 times. The last 2 weeks, they've had a balanced attack, running the football very well, using both running backs. And also, they got weapons on offense. Dalton Schultz, big game, 7 targets, more snaps than Jarwin. He's the guy. He's a top 5 tight end right now. We've been talking a lot about him on this show. He is the guy. Blake Jarwin's really good, but clearly there's a connection there with Dak and Dalton Schultz, who they used in the red zone quite often as well. Zeke, 53 snaps. I mentioned the carries. He had 3 targets. Pollard, 29 snaps. I think Pollard's just a guy you can roll out as a flex, right? Kind of like the Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram days with the Saints. Zeke is the lead. He's not a top 5 back, but he's definitely an RB1. he ran with a purpose yesterday. And Pollard's that guy that, it looks like he's going to get some touches. When he's on the field, he's productive as well. I think both guys had like 5.5 yards per attempt. That's it. That's all my takeaways from the game. Dallas got Carolina next week. Looking ahead, that line is at 4. That's one that I like. Early lines that I believe will change. Bets I already have in the bet tracker. KC 6.5. I know they've only covered one of their last 13 games, but this is going to be a get right spot for the Chiefs. Tampa Bay 6.5 over New England. That's going to be a marquee game, right? We got Tom Brady going back to Foxborough, who, by the way, is only 68 yards away from passing Drew Brees for the most passing yards of all time. The NFL set up that perfectly, right? Week 4, they averaged it out. Let's see. When we get into week 4, looks like Brady's going to break the record. Let's have him play in Foxborough against Bill Belichick. I jump on that 6.5 right now. And then Tennessee already in the bet tracker. I bet it at 5.5 last night. It's now up to 7 in some spots. I would get on that now. I wouldn't go any higher than like 8.5, 9.5, but I do feel like they win by a touchdown at least, right? They're winning by a touchdown against the Jets. That's it. No other takeaways. Eagles, not great. And Dallas, looking pretty good. Looking pretty good on offense. Eric Young's in here. Always looking good, Eric Young. We're going to switch gears and talk a whole lot hockey. I got a lot over at FTN Fantasy. Buy lows, sell highs, trade targets, all that stuff is available for free over at ftnfantasy.com. If you're looking for waiver wire stuff, Joe Metz was in here yesterday. We have that as well over at ftnfantasy.com and our YouTube page. So check that if you are looking to grab some guys on the waiver wire this week. We're going to switch gears, talk a little hockey next. Mean Streets continues right here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you, and the Eric Young joins me here today. We're going to talk a little Central hockey, a little Central Division. Your Preds, talk about the Avs, Minnesota Wild. Eric, man, it's been so long. The newest member of the FTN fam. Congrats, welcome in. And what's going on, buddy? It's been way too long.
Yeah, way too long. Hockey is creeping up on us, man. The season's going to be upon us here. The prep is underway. No sleep for the wicked. I'm excited for a full season again, man. And, people in the stands. There's a bunch of interesting storylines, a bunch of interesting bets, a bunch of interesting odds on who could win the cup and this, that, and the other. So it's going to be a cool year, man. And happy to be back on your wing.
Oh, baby. Yeah. As I said off the top, we're going to have lots of content over at FTN Bets. You and I are going to be talking every single week, talking some hockey, breaking it all down and helping those out. And we're just really October 12th, 13th, I believe. So we're right there, man. The games are happening. Preseason action is happening as well. So let's not mess around. I know you got lots of drafts. You and I are going to be doing some drafts here together before the season does start. Let's start things off with the Colorado Avalanche. Let's preview the studs. I mean, the Avs last year were the past couple of years, Eric, they've had a lot to offer from a fantasy hockey standpoint. They lose Jonas Donskoy, but they still have a ton to offer, right? You got Nathan McKinnon. They actually have three guys here up at the top in terms of just top 10 players. I mean, top 12 first round guys. Nathan McKinnon, ADP of 3. Yahoo Leagues, Mikko Rantanen, 6. I was looking at Underdog Best Ball last night. His ADP is like 17. That's an absolute steal. Yahoo has him ranked as a top 6 player. I do believe in this ranking. Kel Mccarr, 12. Darcy Kemper, the new addition, so they lose as well. Some goaltending depth. And then they got Gabriel Landeskog, Andre Burakovsky. And then I have a sleeper here in Alex Newhook. We saw a little bit of him last season. He's probably still going to play on a third line role. It's going to be some inconsistencies from him overall. But also, looks like he's going to get some second power play time. Not on this list is Nazim Cadre. He still has a significant role on this Avs team. He's probably going to be on the first power play unit. He lost that opportunity towards the end of last season with Donskoy. I would draft him ahead of Alex Newhook. But I wanted to get Newhook in there. And the Avs are favored to win the Stanley Cup at plus 475. And to win the Central is not a good bet, but they most likely will win that division at minus 200. And their point total you see at 110.5. I mean, what is there really to say about this Avs team? The top 3 guys are certainly targets for you as well, UI. I know you're a big Kel Mccarr guy.
Yeah, mega powers for sure, man. Kel Mccarr is maybe my favorite player to watch in all of the NHL. He just does things that a kid his age shouldn't be doing. When we were both still at The Athletic, I wrote one of my very first articles. I said, if you're in a dynasty draft or whatever it was, this is his rookie season. I said, you can't go wrong taking this guy in the first round. I had a lot of pushback because of that, because he didn't play. I mean, he had played a few games in the playoffs the year before, and that was enough for me to know that, I mean, in a pressure cooker situation like that, he's unreal. He's one of the best defensemen in the league, can skate, has got good size, can shoot, has great vision. I mean, he's a complete player. The Avalanche are scary again. Another guy, a sneaky guy that you can get late in your drafts that could be interesting is Valery Nichushkin. I keep banging the drum for this guy. But he right now it is possible that he plays on the second line and could get some power play time as well. Big body is starting to become the player that a lot of people thought he was going to be when he first came into the league. And I think it just took him some time to mature and figure out that, at most of the time, he's one of the biggest guys on the ice, and really learning to use that body to protect the puck, retrieve it and make plays, man. He's another guy that's really cool to watch. This team is loaded. They were my pick to win the cup last year. And it wouldn't surprise me if they won it this year. I mean, now they with some experience, and the D-core is good. Kemper, could be the best goalie to play for this team since Patrick Waugh. I know that's a stretch, but he was unbelievable in Arizona, and Arizona has been rotten for 10 years. So with a team like that in front of him, Kemper could be a sneaky Vezina pick.
Yeah, he really could be. I like that call. He made Arizona relevant over the past couple of years. You're right. And they weren't really. My one thing with Kemper, and I will say this, is just I'm looking at his stats, and I had to just double check before I came on, is he's only had one season with over 31 games. Like, injuries have really hurt him quite a bit. And I still like Pavel Francouz. I liked him last year as well. Injuries kind of slowed him down. There could be a scenario where it's like 60-40. The Avs are rolling all year and they just limit Kemper because, like I said, injuries have slowed him down, but he steps into the best team he's ever played for here with a loaded team on offense, and they don't give up a whole lot in terms of high danger chances. They really want one of the best like analytical teams of the salary cap era last season in terms of just creating chances, eliminating high danger chances, and scoring chances, and not giving up a whole lot, which is so different from where he was in Arizona and having to stop like 40, 50 saves a night. But he comes in with a career 2.46 goals against average and a 917 save percentage. It's been above 910 in each of the last three seasons, 925 in 2018 and 928 in 2019. You know, Russ Prentice plays in a lot of high stakes leagues. I do as well. And one thing we both talked about is that maybe he wouldn't be a worthy of a top 3 pick at the goalie position in those leagues because they count saves. Like when we're talking DraftKings throughout the season and Kemper's ranked up at the top, like as the highest priced goalie, yeah, he's probably going to get the win and the shutout is certainly going to be in play with this team. But how many pucks is he going to see? And he may not return a lot of value if he's only making 20 saves a game. It's something to consider. Goalies in those high stakes leagues and those points leagues that count saves, when they're going to give 40 plus saves night in and night out, like the guy like Mackenzie Blackwood, for example, he could have the same amount of fantasy points as Darcy Kemper. One guy's going in the second round, another guy's going in the 14th round. It's just something to consider. It's my one thing I'll say about Darcy Kemper, but he probably is in for a career year. If he can find a way to get 40 plus starts, he could win 30 games, 35 games, and away you go. I think the one step forward that they need to make, obviously get to the third round, is just to have Eric, a guy like Nazim Kadri, don't have some bonehead plays here. Like no, it's been a couple of years in a row he's been suspended in the playoffs, and I think that's really the next step. But I love the Nichushkin call. Is Kadri on your radar? Because he's a guy that, you know, you could take him as your last pick, and he could fall into 30 goals again.
Yeah, definitely. Tons of skill, especially in a bangers league, you know, where there's hits and blocks like Kadri. You know, he's not prolific in those categories, but he's going to do it. He's going to get it done. He plays a full 200-foot game. A very good player. But I mean, like, until you could tell me that he's not going to do something stupid, I don't know, man. It's scary. I mean, he played them, you know, the entire regular season, and that's what we're talking about here for fantasy and stuff like that. And we'll cross the playoff bridge when we get there. Tyson Jost is another sneaky guy that he ended the year pretty decently. You know, I don't think he plays a ton, but he could have some second power play time for a guy that you can get like in your very, very last.
Yeah, Darcy Kemper is 14-1, by the way, to win the Vezina Trophy. Just checking that out in our prop shop. That's not a bad bet.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I made the bet last year on Philip Grubauer, and that was 14-1, roughly too. And he was right there. I mean, he had a good season as well. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty solid bet, Darcy Kemper. All right, I like the Yost call as well. These guys could step up and be on the second power play unit. I put Newhook in there as over Nichushkin, because it does look like Newhook will get that second PP time, but Nichushkin may have a role inside the top 6, which is certainly valuable if he can spend some time on that top line. Like at times last year, they did split up that trio of Landeskog, Rantanen, and Nate McKinnon. If they do that again, Nichushkin, you know, could find himself playing with Nate, and that would be a win for him. All right, Minnesota Wild. Your Wild. We'll get to your Preds in a little bit. Dude, I thought you'd be rocking the Kirill Kaprizov jersey in here today. Kaprizov has a phenomenal
still
season.
Too hot for jerseys here, buddy. I'd die. I'd have a heart attack.
Fair enough. North of the border, it's a little chilly. Kirill Kaprizov wins the Calder last year. His ADP is 27 over at Yahoo. Cam Talbot and Capo Kakinen, both guys, very strong seasons last year, especially Cam Talbot. And when Cam Talbot was sidelined, Kakinen stepped in there and was really good when Minnesota went on their run. And they seemed unbeatable. I believe they won like 10 or 11 games in a row, and Kakinen was in the net for most of those games. And for whatever reason, Seattle didn't want anything to do with him. they did take Grubauer, as we mentioned. Kevin Fiala, Jared Spurgeon, and Joel Eriksson-Ek, who I think is in for a breakout season. I got down here sleepers, Marco Rossi and Matt Boldy. Now, these are guys that may not start the season with the Wild. I don't think we need to get out of hand and draft these guys early. You see Rossi has the 234 ranking over at Yahoo, and Boldy is like 1,400. So Yahoo is not even really thinking about this guy. And I think if there's one that makes the team, it's probably Boldy. The Wild are 25-1 to win the Cup, plus 700 to win the Central, and their point total here is at 97.5. That from DraftKings, but use our free prop shop to get the best possible odds over at ftnbets.com. What do you make of this team, man? Pretty good squad.
Yeah, I mean, I think they surprised most people, me included. You know, the odds were crazy. I think they had the second or third best best betting odds last year, other than Ottawa, I think it was. And I was looking at the team. I'm thinking, man, they've got 6 really good defensemen. They've got good goaltending. They've got some young players. This Kaprizov guy, I know me and you were on him all year last year.
Oh yeah.
Before he came, we were all over him as well. I know in the keeper league that you're saying you're getting him in like the 12th round or whatever, which is an absolute steal. Good for you. The rich get richer, as they say. But the thing I like on the board that you just showed is Eriksson-Ek there. I mean, he's going to be the number 1 center. He showed last year that he can play in any situation. And I think a lot of times players his age, it doesn't come down to skill and ice time. It comes down, the difference is confidence. And the Minnesota Wild said, we trust you, and we trust you as the number 1 center, and he's going to be the number 1 center. And anybody that's going to play with Kaprizov, sign me up. The guy is a freak skater, crazy vision, does not get the respect that he deserves with his passing, and can shoot the puck like a god. So anybody that's going to play center with him is going to play on both the top line and probably the top power play. Sign me up. I mean, Eriksson-Ek's going, what was it, 168? That's a steal. That's a big time. I'm not saying to take him 100, but I mean, if you went, 115, 120, you're going to get him on your team, and you're going to have a super solid centerman for the entire season. So yeah, that one really stuck out to me as the number 1 center there.
Yeah, I think I got one question, Eric, from somebody who said he was thinking about not keeping Braden Shen and putting him back in the pool and keeping Eriksson-Ek. And I said, yeah, sure.
100%.
Absolutely. Right?
Smash
absolutely.
Yep.
Career years across the board for him, 56 games, 19 goals, 30 points. He played 15 minutes 2 years ago. He averaged 17 minutes last season. He plays in all situations. He's a great defensive forward. He's got some offensive flash to him as well. And you're right. If he's going to get an opportunity to play as the number 1 center, because that was the thing. Like Zuccarello and Kaprizov definitely had connection together, but they were rotating through like Bjugstad and Rask. They just didn't have a number 1 center. And I don't fully believe that they do. But if you're in a keeper league and a dynasty league starting out, Marco Rossi, I do believe, will be that number 1 center for the Wild very soon. If it's not this year, maybe next year towards the end of this season. But for now, Eriksson-Ek is going to be that number 1 guy, and he can touch a lot of categories for you. Yeah. He can block some shots, over 100 shots, over 100 hits, trips to the penalty box. Like I said, a good defensive forward. If you're playing in those silly plus-minus leagues, he can help you out there as well. Eric, we'll take a quick break. We do both like this Wild team, and it's going to be a little bit different without Ryan Suter and Zach Parise on the squad, right? Those vets that were bought out and they were signed to lengthy deals at the exact same time and then bought out at the exact same time as well. We will talk about Suter's new team, but we'll also talk about the Chicago Blackhawks, who made a lot of offseason moves, and they got their captain Taves back in the lineup. Central Division preview continues here with myself and Eric Young. Keep her locked. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and Eric Young here with you, continuing our Central Division preview. If you're looking for the Atlantic Division preview, that is up over at our YouTube page. Myself and Pete Jensen broke everything down for you. So let's get into, I want to start with the Chicago Blackhawks, Eric. This is a team last year that went through a lot, right? They were without their captain, Jonathan Toews. Toews was sidelined for the entire season. And they also had a nice young player in Kirby Dock who broke his arm at the World Juniors playing for Team Canada. But they do have some really solid pieces in here. DeBrincat had a nice bounce back year. We all know about Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane as a borderline first round pick. DeBrincat at 35. They bring in Marc-Andre Fleury. I mean, the crazy what happened to him in Vegas, and just a wild year, and playing him and not playing him, and then not telling him that he was traded. And oh man, just wild stuff, how they treated him. But nonetheless, the future Hall of Famer with the original 6 Blackhawks this season. And then they bring in Seth Jones. They make a trade to acquire Jones and lock him up to a lengthy deal. Dominic Kubalik is a nice young player who can provide them 20 plus goals. As I mentioned, Toews coming back and looking pretty strong. All reports at the camp is that he looks really good. And then Kirby Dock, as I mentioned, at 182. I have Tyler Johnson here as a sleeper, as his Yahoo ranking is 560. But I noticed, I know it's very small samples, only a couple preseason action here. He played on the top line. He played with Kane and DeBrincat. I don't know if he's going to stick on that line, dude, and if he's going to play with Kane and DeBrincat, at least start the season, I'm going to be very interested in him from a DFS standpoint and a deep league standpoint.
Yeah, where you're getting him, I mean, he would be the last player taken if he's 560, and if he plays on the top line with DeBrincat and Kane, then you just stumbled onto a giant gold nugget. So, I mean, he's definitely worth going last. I mean, picking him in the tail end of the draft. I think Tyler Johnson, being a guy that played in Tampa, is kind of got lost in the shuffle. He had that one really, really productive, good year. I think he's a really good player. I don't think he's as good as he was on that high output year, but I think he's a very good player that got lost in the shuffle in Tampa and became more of a role player. I think over in Chicago, especially at the center position, I think it was Dylan Strome was their number one center last year. So, and he was good for fantasy, especially because of where you got him. So having someone like Tyler Johnson, even if he plays on the second line with Kubalik, I think it's a really good grab, getting him really late in your draft.
What do you make of this Hawks team? Do you like the moves? Like Seth Jones, you're a big fan of. Fleury, we like. Yeah. It's going to be a little bit different. He leaves Vegas, where much like Colorado, they didn't give up any high danger chances. Not a ton. I mean, he held his own. He won the Vezina, right? He had 1.98 goals against average and a 928 save percentage. I mean, those numbers are probably a little bit unsustainable. He probably won't be able to duplicate that in Chicago, given the amount of high danger chances this team does give up and have they've given up in past. Certainly Seth Jones helps them on the blue line. Duncan Keith is gone. He's a member of the Edmonton Oilers now. But you're going to have to spend a high pick on Marc-Andre Fleury. Right now, Yahoo has him ranked as the 8th goalie, is a pick inside the top 50 here on average. Are you into him?
I feel like this is kind of like the Tom Brady rule from playing fantasy football, is like, until he proves that he can't, like, you have to take him. I mean, it's literally just that way. I mean, he had one down year. Last year was one of, if not the best goalie in the entire NHL. Like, Chicago is not as deep as Vegas. I don't think they're as good a team as Vegas. Seth Jones helps someone defensively, but they don't have a lot of other talented blue liners. And the reality is this is a pretty young team. It's going to depend on how well they're coached and if Fleury can maintain. For me, like I said, like, I'm not betting against him because that's been a fool's errand for the last couple of years. So I'm not going to bet against him until he gives me a reason to. So yeah, I'm probably going to take him if he falls to the right spot.
All right. Yeah. I mean, it was a career season for him. I mean, we just gave the numbers. It's the first season he ever had a sub 2 goals against average. I mean, the 928 save percentage, he's flirted with those numbers before. He had 921 way back in like 2007, 2008, 915, 921 with the Pens. But the last couple seasons, his first year with Vegas was 927. So he was rock solid for the Golden Knights for a while. So he goes to Chicago again. Talk about those points leagues. Like, this guy's going to see way more rubber than Darcy Kemper. Now, the ratios won't be the same. The goals against average and the save percentage won't be the same. He's not going to get as many wins. But in a points league, it kind of evens out because he is going to make a lot of saves for the Blackhawks. Anybody here that is anyone else that's a target on this squad for you? Like, are you buying into Kirby Dock here in the season?
Yeah.
What about Jonathan Taves? Is about not a great fantasy asset over the past couple of years, but I still think he has a lot to offer. And he missed all of last season. Eric, is what the Blackhawks described as chronic immune response syndrome. But all reports out of Chicago is that, one, he's ripped in the best shape of his life and just excited to come back and play some hockey.
Yeah, I like Taves. Look, I mean, he's a human being. He got sick and couldn't play last year. But I mean, he's a pretty productive player. I don't know. I would say that he's a fantasy star or somebody that you want to be putting in your DFS lineups or anything like that. But he's super solid. And the other guy that I'm interested in is Kirby Dock. I mean, I think, last year with breaking his arm and then coming in mid-season, and, it's a weird year and it's a shortened season and there's a lot going on. I think this could be his coming out party. So he's somebody I'm really interested in. I get Tyler Johnson in the preseason is playing on the top line, but it wouldn't surprise me if Dock is is centering the top or the second line and Tyler Johnson is on the third.
Before we wrap up, Seth Jones. Seth Jones is probably going to log a lot of minutes with Chicago. He's going to be a horse on that blue line. Target of yours?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you said, the reality is with that much playing time becomes opportunity. He's a good player. He's a good skater. He can shoot. He can pass. He can play physical. He plays all over the ice. It was a surprise to me that they paid all that, or the Columbus Blue Jackets paid all that money to Werenski and let Seth Jones go. I would have done it the other way personally. But I mean, nobody knows the players better than they do. But I think Chicago was a great place for him to land. Had that one overtime game whenever we played, like, was it 56 minutes or something insane? So we know he can do it, and he's going to have to for them. So, but the reality is he's not going to come off the ice. He's going to be the number one in time on ice for this team every game all year long. He doesn't really get hurt. He's a really good skater, doesn't get hit very often. So he's a guy that where he's going, I would probably slide him up my rankings just because of the opportunities he's going to have, because he's not going to come off the ice.
Yeah, he's not ranked as a top 10 defenseman across like Yahoo, ESPN. They don't have him ranked that way. Underdog, he's not getting drafted that way, but I do believe he's a top 10. I mean, he's averaged at least 25 minutes in each of the last 3 seasons. He's going to hit, he's going to shoot, he's going to get top power play time. The Blackhawks are going to score some goals, and he's going to block a lot of shots if you're playing in those bangers leagues that you and I like to play in. So he's going to touch a lot of categories for you. I think he could have a career season in terms of power play production, and his best season, 24 points on the power play in 2017 and 18. That Blackhawks team is going to score when they get power plays, how lethal that they are up front on offense. All right, Eric, we'll take a quick break, and we'll continue breaking down the Central Division. Don't go anywhere. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney with the Eric Young, breaking things down in the NHL. And all seems well again in the world, buddy. We are just close. We are days away from the puck dropping on the new 2021-22 NHL season. Let's talk about the Blues. Let's talk St. Louis Blues. We'll get to your Preds in a little bit here. So the Blues, they are loaded up front, and they have a couple new additions here. Pavel Buchnevich, as you see there from the Rangers. They acquired him and then locked him up, and he is going as pick 147. David Perron, 111. Got Torrey Krug in there as a top 100 pick. Vladimir Teresenko is the one interesting player here. There was some reports that he wanted out, and St. Louis was trying to find a suitor for him, and they couldn't. And he's, a couple times now, some shoulder injuries for Tarasenko, hardly played last season. Braden Shen in there is a top 100 pick. Jordan Binnington, 89, and Ryan O'Reilly, 62. This team, 50-1 to win the Stanley Cup, just a couple years removed from winning the Stanley Cup and having basically the exact same team intact besides, I'd say Pietrangelo on the blue line is a big loss that they lost a couple years ago. 15-1 for the Central, over under 92.5. I got Jordan Cairo here as a sleeper. I just couldn't think of any other deep league sleepers for the Blues. I mean, he's a guy that I think is getting undervalued in terms of Yahoo and ESPN where they have him ranked. I think he could break out and score maybe 20 goals and find himself in a top 6 role. But what do you make of this St. Louis team? I'm having a hard time with Tarasenko. I just don't think I'm going to bother with him this year.
Yeah, I mean, me too. It's just keeps getting hurt. The tough feelings of asking to be traded and then they can't find he's got a pretty big ticket and not reliable injury wise. So, nobody wanted to swallow that salary. And so he's going to play on St. Louis. And I read, his tweet saying, I'm going to be 100% and I'm going to play 100%. And St. Louis is, this is the team I'm playing for this year and this, that, and the other. But these guys are human beings. His feelings are hurt. Their feelings are hurt. It'll be weird for him. I love the call on the sleeper, the Jordan Cairo. Could play on the top line, tons of offensive upside. But a guy that I'm really interested in to keep my eye on is Rob Thomas. I think right now Daily Faceoff has him centering the second line. We've talked about this guy before. Like you would see some games where you would be like, oh man, who's that? He would really pop. And then other games he would completely disappear. And I think that's inexperience and lack of confidence. But I think if he moves up to that second line center, the Blues lean on him. He plays with some better players. Rob Thomas could be a guy that is an absolute steal in your drafts and a great guy to put in your early DFS lineups because he's going to be so poorly valued.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're waiting for him, Thomas and Cairo. Like these are nice young pieces that could take that next step this season. It's exactly what the Blues need. I mean, they struggled to score some goals last year. I think Shen and O'Reilly, O'Reilly is a great dude if you're playing in face-off leagues, takeaways, the Fantrax league that we play in. Like he is very valuable in those formats. Shen is okay and Perron is okay. Like they can provide a little bit of grit, some hits, and they should both score 20 plus goals, but Tarasenko is a fade for me. And I mean, if you're a Blues fan, you hope that Pavel Buchnevich, who I thought the Rangers should have kept. I mean, he's a nice young player. He's got some offensive upside. He can score goals. He's a proven goal scorer here. 20 goals last season for him and 48 points. Loves to shoot the puck. I think he can provide a nice little spark. Also on this team is Brennan Saad, who could help them out on 5-on-5. Not a great fantasy asset, but he leaves Colorado and he goes to St. Louis, and he can help them out. It gives them more depth. I think they do have 3 solid lines that can compete. I just don't know if I fully believe in Binnington. I don't know. That's weird because he was so awesome when they won the cup that I think the blue line and Binnington himself, I think there's a couple holes which will keep them from winning this division, certainly, and maybe not even making the playoffs. I don't know. Do you think they're a playoff team?
Yeah, I don't know, man. This is a tough division. There's always a surprise. I think that probably the Preds are rated under them, but I've got a sneaky suspicion that they're going to be very competitive this year. And like you said, the biggest thing for me is since Binnington got that contract and got paid, he has not been the same goalie. You see this, often this happens in the NFL where guys are young and they're hungry and they get that first big paycheck and they disappear. And that's what's happening with him. And I think maybe being what he considered underpaid and, the guy that is the backup and he's playing in the ECHL and he had this chip on his shoulder, that he had this unbelievable year and they rewarded him. And now he feels like he deserves it or, whatever that saying is, he's complacent. And that's what it looks like to me. I'm not a psychologist. I don't know him personally. But I feel that year that he had that unbelievable year, he was running on pure hate and emotion. I mean, he was out to prove everybody wrong. And then he did. And then he got paid, and he hasn't been the same since. I mean, even the most diehard St. Louis Blues fan will say that you can't trust him right now. Couldn't trust him last year. You couldn't trust him the year before that either.
No, you couldn't. He's a pass. I wouldn't draft him. I need to see a little bit more from him. Need to see him try to get back to that Stanley Cup run that he had a couple of years ago. All right, Eric, we'll take another break. We'll save the Preds for last. We got 2 more segments here. We'll talk about the Stars and the Jets, who both have the same odds to win this division. So don't go anywhere. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Welcome back to Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and Eric Young. Eric, we only have about 6 minutes here, and I want to talk about your Preds, so we'll save them in the final segment. Let's group Winnipeg and Dallas here together. Let's talk about the Jets, because they do have a lot to offer from a fantasy standpoint as well. A team that can score some goals. I mean, Mark Scheifele's in there. Nikolai Ehlers is a sniper. We have Kyle Connor, who's a sniper as well, and then Connor Hellebuck, who's going as a top 30 pick, really on average. Scheifele will miss the first game of the season. Blake Wheeler, I believe, is a fade for me. I'm just into the snipers. I'm into the goal scorers here. I guess the big question would be Pierre-Luc Dubois. Like, is he going to be able to bounce back? Because, my goodness, he was invisible when he went to Winnipeg last season. He was awful in the playoffs, and he just didn't look like the same type of player. I don't know if Torts screwed him up, but, man, he needs a bounce-back season. He's got all the tools, man, but I don't know if I'm into him.
Yeah, I might grab him late, but I mean, he's got to show me something first. I mean, I think probably, full training camp, full preseason with the team for the entire summer, and knowing the team better and knowing his teammates better, things could be a lot different. But until he shows it, I'm not reaching for him. If he's there late, then I might take him. The guy that I am absolutely all over, I will reach, 10, 20, maybe 25 picks is Kyle Connor. He looked like the best player on this team last year. Every time he touched the puck, something was happening, and more often than not, it was going in the net. He is just an unbelievable skater, speed, agility. Every time he touched the puck last year, something was happening, and I want guys like that on my team.
Yeah, no question. I love him as well. He's a sniper, and that's what you want, goal scorers. It's hard to come by, these goal scorers and these shooters. I think you need to attack them early on in your draft, especially if you're drafting over an underdog where you get more points for shots and for goals. Him and Nikolai Ehlers are guys that we hit the shot props often last season. They're both proven 20-plus goal scorers. Connor could flirt with 40 here again, which he's done before in his career, and Nikolai Ehlers could get into the 30s as well. Okay, let's switch gears quickly. About a minute on Dallas. They don't really have a lot of offensive firepower. Last year was weird for Jamie Benn. We didn't really see Tyler Seguin. They have guys that we like Gary Onup is a nice little player. Pavelski's getting a little bit older. Robinson had a really strong season. But this is a team that I feel like they're underwhelming. They don't score a lot of goals, so I kind of crossed them off my list. Is there anyone that you really like in Dallas?
Yeah, they play that low event style. They're fun to watch. I mean, physically, they're tough. They're big. They've got some good speed. For me, I think Rupe Hintz ended in the top 40 point producers last year and played only about half of the games. He was hurt all year. It was frustrating because it was like game time decision. When he played, he scored almost every time he played because he missed half of the season. So for me, that's the number one guy to take on this team. Sagan coming off the injury, that's too much of a risk for me. Ben looked old and slow, still one of my favorite players, but I'm not touching him in fantasy. But Rupe Hintz, all day, every day, get him on your team and thank me later.
I like it. I'm into hints too. I'd like to see him stay healthy. He's already dealing with a groin injury though right now, so he may fall down the draft boards. But don't let him fall too far, because he is a really good player. And when he's playing, you're right. He's like a point per game guy. Robertson, I'm in on. Hintz, I'm in on, and I kind of in on Klingberg, but Heiskanen's there. They got Suter. There's a lot going on. I think we'll see a bounce back season from Braden Holtby too. I think he could take this net away from Khudobin, who's a little bit older. Holtby was not great last year. He wasn't good in Washington, was more loose of a system. But now we're, like you said, Dallas plays tight. They're strong defensively, and they don't give up a whole lot. So I think, Holtby is a nice little sleeper, and you can get him with like your last pick if you want to. We'll break one more time. We'll talk about your Preds. Don't go anywhere. Mean Streets continues here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney and Eric Young here with you one final time, but we'll be with you for the entire NHL season. Eric Young, the newest edition of FTN. And Eric, we didn't get to the Arizona Coyotes. There's really not a whole lot to say about this Coyotes team. They've just stockpiled draft picks over the past 6 or 7 months. They have a lot of them, and they're just shipping guys away. Maybe we'll talk about them at some point through the season. They lost everyone, man. I don't know who there is really to talk about. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's Connor's gone. Garland's gone. All these guys are gone. Let's finish things up.
Jacob Checker, and that's it.
Jacob Tripp, good call. He's a stud. Draft him. Don't be afraid of roundings. Draft him.
He's not coming off the ice.
Yeah, exactly. He's not coming up, guys. All right, let's finish things up with your Preds here. Victor Arvidsson it's new look for Nashville, right? Some of your guys are gone. Pekka retires, and Victor Arvidsson's in LA. This team is not going to be overly competitive long shots here, but what do you like from a fantasy standpoint?
The number one offensive guy on this team has been and will continue to be Philip Forsberg. It's a contract year for him. I'm expecting big things for him. A sneaky guy is Cody Glass, a centerman they picked up from Las Vegas. Had some buzz and some hype going there. Never ever transpired, but I think he's going to get a chance to play here. Johansson, I'm done. Duchesne looks uninspired. I'm done. But yeah, I mean, I think this could be a fun team to watch, to be honest. I think they're going to be pretty competitive. UC Saros proved the world and proved me wrong. I just said mathematics, like he's not tall enough to play a starting role in the NHL, and he proved me wrong. He was unbelievable for most of the season last year, and the only reason they sniffed the playoffs. So, but yeah, for me, it's really fantasy-wise, it's Philip Forsberg and nobody else. Yossi on defense, of course.
He's good.
Of course. But, I mean, he's going to go. I mean, he's considered a top 5. If you want him, you're going to have to spend.
It'll be interesting to see. Cody Glass is on the Preds, right? They made that 3-way trade. It'd be interesting to see. He was slated to play just the other day. I saw him play with Tolvanen and Kunin. I mean, that could be okay.
That could be a really interesting line. That's, there's potential skill there. Like, I mean, it hasn't been proven and hasn't come to fruition, but Tolvanen can really shoot the puck. It's something I really noticed last season in person a couple times. I went to a few games, but watching him, like the release, this guy, if Cody, Kunin can dig it, make a play, and Cody Glass can distribute to Tolvanen, and Tolvanen can really shoot the puck. That could be a big time line for this team this year.
You look at this team on paper, we got to get out of here, but you see Granlund and then you see Johansson, you see Duchesne. You need to see more from those guys. You really do. I mean, they're paid like superstars. They need to show up, but I'm with you. I'd pass on all of them. Philip Forsberg is a strong target. And yeah, you're right. UC Saros showed that he could be a number one in the NHL. Eric, always a pleasure, dude. We will catch up again soon. Good luck in all your drafts. Give Eric a follow at the Eric Young, and we will talk a lot of hockey over at FTN. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us. We'll be back tomorrow. Cheers.